بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient, those who when disaster strikes say, indeed we are to Allah and to Him we shall return. The coronavirus has affected the lives of many around the world. Some spiritually. You find that mosques and places of worship have been closed. Some physically. Many bedbound in hospitals, not able to go anywhere. Some economically. Many people have gone bankrupt because of this virus, because of this pandemic. Some emotionally. Doctors overwhelmed in hospitals by the amount of cases coming through every day. The elderly, who most of the time are on their own, and if someone wanted to visit them, they wouldn't be able to because they're told to self-isolate. Now this raises questions about humanity, our reactions, our cooperations, but also our relationship with our Lord. Many of us turn to God in difficult times, and this virus, a pandemic that is affecting us all. Let's tonight discuss how this affects us and everyone else around the world. But before we do so, I'd like to welcome you all, dearest brothers and sisters, dearest viewers wherever you may be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Thank you all for joining us today on this special live event. And please, throughout the show, do send in your WhatsApp questions. And please do ask to say the questions that you want to know about this virus and how to approach it from an Islamic point of view. But without further ado, all and more with Dr. Sayyid Ammar Naqshawani. Sayyidina, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks. Alhamdulillah.
Now, Sayyidina, the coronavirus, it's been a subject of, debate and discussion everywhere. Now, I want to start off with theology and then move on to other areas, because I think that's the best way to go about it. Some Muslims and non-Muslims, but non-Muslims, people of faith, have gone on to say that, this is a punishment from God on China, because that's where the virus started. Now, we see a lot of examples where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran does punish people. You look at the people of Pharaoh, the people of Noah, the people of Shu'aib, the people of Ad. But what's the base of this worldview?
Yeah, it's interesting and also quite disappointing, I think, when a person begins to discriminate against a whole group of people by saying that that's God's punishment on those people. I have noticed this with people out there, where they have said that, the Chinese people are punished in the way nations in the Quran have been punished. Now let's try and see what the basis of this opinion is. We know very well that in the Quran, there are moments where we see God's mercy. There are moments where we see God's anger. And God's anger can be a result of a few different things. Firstly, it could be the result of a nation that completely rejects God and mocks God.
Okay.
rejects God and mocks God in a way where the head of that nation, for example, may kill those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or maybe, for example, even himself claims that he is God and begins to mock the God of the prophets who have been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you find, for example, in the Quran, someone like Pharaoh. Pharaoh killed those who believed in the Lord of Musa until even he reached a level where he said, I am the Lord the Most High.
Yeah.
So you found that Pharaoh and his soldiers were drowned. And so on the first level, we have those who call for the rejection of God in their society.
Okay.
Some correlated this on the first level to the people of China, considering the belief in God is not seen as a mainstay of the Chinese government and is not necessarily seen as something positive when you have communities of believers of God in China. So their first opinion was that this is a punishment from God because in the same way that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has punished those who have mocked the worship of God. Likewise, in the same way, the fact that the people of China may have discriminated against Muslims or against those who want to believe in God. So they say, look, there is a correlation. And that's why this punishment is taking place. That's why this virus is spreading. Then they say, secondly, in the Holy Quran, you find that those people who have tried to worship God and have been oppressed, God punished the nations that oppressed them. So if you look, for example, in the Quran, let's say the people of Noah, a few of them tried to worship God. They were mocked, they were oppressed. So God caused a flood to happen. And so they say, likewise, there is major uproar that we've always spoken about with the Uyghur people. The Uyghur people have been oppressed in a way which sadly many do not know about in the world, where they've been sent to what have been called as educational camps, when really these are concentration camps where some of the ladies of the Uyghur community have gone through some of the worst punishment anyone can ever go through and some of the worst torture anyone can ever go through. So the second argument for this being a punishment of God is that God in the Holy Quran has said that when you oppress my people, then I will punish you the way nations before have been punished. So they say when you're looking at China, you can see that with China, firstly, the rejection of God. Secondly, the torture of those who believe in God. Thirdly, they say in the Quran that when a group of people begin to make that which is prohibited become legal and that which is legal become prohibited, then those people straight away are punished. So for example, when you look within the Holy Quran, you may see the story of someone like Nabi Shu'aib alayhi salam with the people of Madian.
Yeah.
People of Madian were economically corrupt, as we discussed in our prophets in the Holy Quran series in the holy month of Ramadan. And so the people of Madian, of course, were completely annihilated. And so they say that when you look at the markets in China which were selling that which was prohibited and made it allowed to be consumed, so in the same way that God punished a group of people like the people of Madian for being economically corrupt and for having transactions and that which is prohibited, likewise, God has punished the people of China with this coronavirus, because when you look at their markets, you found that in their markets, some say that the origin of this virus was involving those who were eating bats, for example. And you look in China and you find that, there were people who were eating bats, people who were eating dogs. I even heard stories that in the Far East, there were people who, for example, were eating the brain of a monkey.
Oh.
Some even mentioned the fact that, it was seen as a delicacy to eat a fetus. Imagine, an unborn fetus was seen as a
Really?
delicacy which people would pay great amounts for. And so when you look at all of these three put together, what you find is a group of the religious faith community, I'm not just going to say a Muslim community, a group of the religious faith community turned around and straight away said, this is a punishment from God. God in the Quran punished the people of Pharaoh because they rejected those or the belief in one God. And God also punished the people of Noah because they tortured or oppressed the believers in the message of God. And God punished the people of Shu'aib. And so likewise, automatically, that means that we can correlate the three with China. And that therefore the coronavirus is a punishment from God against the people of China. So that's their argument, where they're coming from. So from the arguments of those who I've seen saying it's a punishment from God, these are normally the three arguments that they posit.
And it's a very interesting way of looking at it. So the 3 points you mentioned, the first two, fine. But it's interesting you mentioned the meat markets. You know, Islam is so particular in what can be eaten and what can't. Isn't that true?
Of course. Especially even the school of Ahl al-Bayt, the Ja'fari madhab or Ja'fari school of law, you'll find that we're even more specific than other schools in Islam. For example, for us, rabbit is haram. Rabbit is prohibited. Other Muslims have rabbit as acceptable.
Oh.
You'll find that there are other schools in Islam who can eat rabbits. We cannot. You'll find there are other schools in Islam which say, for example, that which is in the sea, such as oyster, octopus, crab, calamari, lobster, they'll say that all of these are allowed. In the school of Ahl al-Bayt, you'll find that majority of our ulama, and what in some cases was seen amongst the greatest of the earlier scholars, was that one of the signs of the Shia was that they would only have fish with scales rather than fish with that. So what you have is that we are very particular in contrast to other schools of Islam.
Yeah.
Let alone in contrast to non-Muslims. You may find, for example, that there are certain Christians who believe in the Book of God, but you'll find that some of them may still eat pork, but they're Christians. In South America, there are some devout Christians who still eat pork. Now you might talk of the flesh of the swine, and they might turn around and say, well, the flesh of the swine was for a certain period and then Christ came and died for our sins. But I don't want to, and I want to make this very clear, I don't want to discriminate. And I think something we need to understand, firstly, we don't know how people's eating habits reach that stage.
Yeah.
In Islam, we cannot eat the dog.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some people out there saying it's disgusting to eat the dog. There are people who eat the pig, and the pig is a bit more unclean than the dog and less hygienic for sure. But anyway, they'll eat the pig and then they'll say it's disgusting to eat a dog. Just go and see how the pig lives and then you'll begin to wonder how you reach such conclusions. Anyway, so you'll find that they may eat the dogs, they may eat bats, for example.
Yeah.
They may, for example, I think worse than all of that is the treatment of some of these animals. So when a dog is thrown alive into a hot pan, or a monkey, for example, is put into a particular device where they're eating from his brain while they're still alive. Islam doesn't just talk about the importance of what you eat, how it's slaughtered. And the delicacies involved, sensitivities involved are all fundamental. But again, I don't want to discriminate, because you need to know a country's history to see that sometimes they went through periods of starvation.
Yeah.
And when going through periods of starvation, sadly, sometimes it may lead you towards first eating something not as a norm, but then making it as a norm.
Yeah.
Or governments who make such things as norms. And remember one thing, viruses end, discrimination stays for a long time.
Ahsan.
I don't want to see us in a situation where we as Muslims now begin to discriminate, because I've seen situations, and I think some of the viewers will agree with me, that when we've gone walking somewhere, in our city, and you see someone who looks like they're from the Far East, or you've sat on the subway or on the train or on a bus, and you've thought twice about going near the person because they look like they're from the Far East. We've been there when our sisters and our daughters and our wives and our mothers were the ones who were wearing hijab, they were wearing the veil, and people sometimes after 9/11 were not sitting next to them.
Ahsant. Yeah.
So people have to be very careful when they're trying to throw theological conclusions that these are all punishments, because you could throw this now and that virus ends, that Chinese human being ends up with people who frown at them. And discrimination of all sorts is something that we cannot accept in society. There is a method in which you may not accept a person's worldview, but you can certainly tolerate it.
Yeah.
But no way should we begin to generalize on people who are innocent people who have got nothing to do with what's taken place. And once again, it's not just the Chinese. People said it's the Chinese, they're punished wrongly. Well, Italians now, how many cases are there in Italy? So what do? You discriminate against every Italian. And if you're saying the Chinese are the ones punished by God because they don't necessarily believe in God, then likewise we have a situation where the Italians are a community who have churches everywhere, if not the center of the Catholic world.
Ahsant, yeah.
Further than that, we have a situation where we have Muslims who are affected. So what, God's also punishing the Muslims? You have in Iran, for example, a major situation which has taken place. A situation which has taken place in a city of Qom, which is seen as a city where there is scholarship. So this argument that this is a punishment from God is something which has been thrown about, and is certainly something that we need to reflect and stay away from.
And that answer, if all the viewers, I hope you all followed that answer, because those are very interesting points to contemplate on, especially the one with the hijab. Our sisters, our mothers, when the events happened back in 2001 and they were discriminated against, and they still are being discriminated against. But Sayyid, you gave, in the beginning, you gave the opinion of people saying this is a punishment against the Chinese people. How about the ones that deny that this is a punishment?
Well, the reply to those who say it's a punishment, as I mentioned, first we mentioned the fact Muslims have been affected, Catholics have been affected. This is a human issue. This is not about saying now this is a war of Islam versus non-Muslims or people of God versus non-people of God. This is a situation where our humanity has to emerge. Secondly, Allah is the Rahman and Allah is the Rahim. Many times we say at the beginning of chapters of the Holy Quran, in the name of God, the most kind, the most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So why are we saying Rahman and why do we say Rahim? What do the masters of Quranic exegesis say when they talk about Rahman and Rahim? They say Allah is the Rahman to all His creation. And He is the Rahim to the chosen believers. In the dua we recite in this holy month of Rajab, O you who gives to the one who asks, and the one who doesn't ask, and the one who doesn't even know Him. Man sa'ala, Allah gives to the one who asks. Man lam yas'al, the one who doesn't ask. Wa man lam ya'rif, and the one who doesn't even know Him.
Subhanallah.
There are those out there who don't know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but He still gives them. How dare I say that Allah, the merciful, Allah, the beneficent, Allah, the generous, would discriminate one group of people ahead of another when sometimes His own, when we say people of God in our communities, we like to say we Muslims are the people of God, are sometimes the ones who are destroying God's earth or destroying the development of humanity.
Can't argue with that.
But they might turn around and say, but in the Quran Allah did. But then the birth of the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, was a mercy to mankind. When we say, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, or when you read ayat in the Holy Quran, like in Surah 8, verse number 33, we will not punish them while you are amongst them. You think when we say our Holy Prophet's a mercy to mankind, it means that those punishments that may have affected the people of Ad and Thamud and Madian are not going to come back. That major punishment that comes where the whole city is turned upside down and the whole people are destroyed. His presence was a mercy to mankind. Therefore, there are many ways in which one can deny this by saying that this is not a punishment and these are some of the points.
Now, Rasulullah is rahmatan lil alameen. Take. Then if it's not a punishment, what could it be?
It could easily be defined as a trial.
Just
A trial. Punishment, let's say, is adhab. And then you have bala. You may have imtihan. You know,
Okay.
and in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you mentioned the verse right at the beginning. And that verse is very much related to what we're going through now. Let's stay away from the punishment talk and let's go to the talk of trials. And trials can affect all human beings. And trials are not necessarily always bad. Okay? So you mentioned in the beginning of this whole discussion, and this ayah I think every Muslim has to have memorized.
Yeah.
In Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2 of the Holy Quran, verse 155 to 156.
Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ
Yeah.
والجوع ونقص من الأموال الأنفس الثمرات. Now, let's look at these one by one. We will test all of you. Finished. Muslim, non-Muslim, all of us are going to be tested. There's no one who's going... If the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family, and the Prophet Jesus and the Prophet Moses have all lived lives and they've all been tested in one way or the other, Moses with his nation, Christ with those who he thought were loyal to him, Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family by those who oppressed his family after he passed away, let alone the number of sons that he had who died in infancy, then we're all going to be tested. لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ Bala, a trial will occur to all of us. God is not discriminating between the one who's religious and non-religious. All of us will be tested.
صح.
لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ Fear. Look at the fear in London right now. And you know, when you look at the fear in London right now, I want everyone to understand one thing, and that is empathize with those who have been in wars, who became refugees, who you looked at their eyes when they were gasping for breath on a small boat crossing channels with their children so that they may breathe. This is a period for a person to humble themselves when fear affects them, and to empathize with those who are refugees and migrants. Because sometimes you'll find some of us will say, who cares about these refugees? Why should I care about them? Why should I? No. Now you look at London, look at the way people are in a state of fear. They don't even know whether to go out or not. They don't even know whether to go to the gym or not. They don't even know whether to, for example, go to your family's houses or not. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ Joe. Go ask Asda about Joe. Go ask Asda, go ask the supermarkets, go ask the Walmarts, go ask the Waitroses, go ask all of them about hunger. Have you seen the human being? They would turn around to you and say, technology is the answer to everything. And yet you see the human being, the moment they don't have the technological device or instruments to be able to cure a virus that emerges from one of God's small creatures, you see them scampering to the supermarkets,
Panic.
queuing up so that they have something made out of wheat, something which is a sanitizer. So when you look at the human being, fear and hunger, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ. And you know,
It's just something.
some fear. And if this is called fear, I don't know how it felt to leave Syria. I don't know how it felt to be those refugees who found themselves on an island in Greece. I don't know how it feels for an Iraqi child to not know if there's a suicide bomb coming any second. I don't know about that Yemeni child. I don't know about even some of the Muslims who face discriminations in parts of India and Pakistan. I don't know what that feeling is. My fear, I might not get toilet rolls as many as I want. I might not get hand sanitizers as I want. That's fear. Hunger. Stock, store.
Panic buying.
And I can appreciate it. But it really is a trial. And it's not just a trial where a Muslim says they are being tested. We're all being tested. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجَوْعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ. There are now people who work in the world of travel. All their flights are cancelled, their bookings are cancelled, their business has got debts to pay. There are people who put deposits on certain events, like we put a deposit for the Imam Hussein Gala dinner, and now we're going to have to rearrange.
I lost flight ticket.
So you have, for example, issues such as bankruptcy as well. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجَوْعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ. I cannot empathize enough with those families who've lost someone beloved to them because of Corona. I'm not going to look at them and say they are Muslim or not Muslim. That's the only concern that I have. No, that's a fellow human being, as Imam Ali summarized wonderfully when he said, people are of two types. They are either your brothers in faith or your equals in humanity. So when the Quran said, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجَوْعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ. We lose one human being, it's as if we've lost the whole of humanity. We shouldn't be, people should not just look at this and say, well, I heard this many people died in this area and that area. And I know that there are some people who say, well, if you're so scared of Corona, you should be scared of Allah because, death can come to you in a second. Yeah, but soften your heart. Soften your heart. Someone who loses someone elderly close to them, soften your heart. نقص من الأموال أنفس ثمرات. If you don't have that money which you need, the crops are not then going to be necessarily grown, the land is not going to be as you'd want it to be, people's land and livelihood is affected.
Yeah.
But then why is God mentioning all of this? Because He's also going to always round it off with a lovely curveball. وَبَشِّرَ الصَّابِرِينَ. And give glad tidings to
the patient.
Generally, people will translate sabr as patience. Sometimes saying patience means just sit back and wait. Use the word steadfast. There's a real vigor involved in that, I'm going to have the willpower to get through this. Because there are many who'll say, why has this happened to me? Why has this happened to me? I'll have sabr. That's not sabr. That's you just saying, well, if this is how it is, this is how it is. Sabr is, if this is your will, I think I'll be strong enough and trust you. There's a difference between the word patience and the word steadfast. And many times God tells us, hold on to being steadfast. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. For He promises, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah is with the patient. No, maybe Allah is with the steadfast. Here Allah says, وَبَشِّرَ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ.
Disaster strikes.
Musibah. Our state of fear is a calamity. Our state of hunger is a calamity.
Yep.
وَبَشِّرَ الصَّابِرِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. Many times when we go to a Fatiha in the community, or you go to a funeral, you hear Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's one thing just saying it as lip service. Oh, I heard your mom died. Inna lillahi wa inna. Oh, I heard your. It's moments like this where we begin to reflect on our God consciousness. Where are we in life? Has this shaken my faith or hasn't? What does that say about my faith? Have I taken things for granted, such as the mosques that I go to? Have I appreciated the presence of these mosques in my life? Because there are some people out there who their religiosity was confined to Muharram and to Shahr Ramadan. Outside of that, there was a non-existent participation. Now look, there may be no Shahr Ramadan programs at the mosque. So where does your religiosity come in? You took the mosque for granted that, I'll wait till April the 24th. Shahr Ramadan's going to begin. We'll go to the mosque. When do we go to the mosque? 19th, 21st, 23rd. We remember Imam Ali. We remember Laylatul Qadr. Now look.
Yeah.
It's a moment for a person to reflect about their relationship with the house of God. And their relationship with the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam.
As Sayyid Ammar mentioned, be empathetic with those who have lost loved ones because of this virus, and our thoughts go out to those facing the difficulties. Now, Sayyidina, you mentioned many interesting points, and we need to reflect upon our religiosity with such a pandemic going on around the world today. But Sayyid, do you think that I've been told from a young age, see the good in the bad. Are there any benefits, of such diseases, or is it just misfortunes? If there are any, and maybe if there's a tradition from the Prophet?
You see, on the one hand, when a sickness does occur, there's one group of traditions that say something more calamitous than poverty is sickness. So you've got one group of traditions which I think you can certainly find a trend in, and that is there's nothing as calamitous as a sickness. It's more calamitous than poverty. On the other hand, there are moments when a sickness, a virus emerges when a society may have become negligent of the bounties that have been bestowed upon them. They've been less mindful of the Lord than what they used to be. In that second way, Islam may look at it as a gift. So the general way is this calamity. Look, you can't deny, as human beings, you're seeing people dying, it's a calamity. But another way, I remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, proposed to this family for their daughter. The father of the girl said to him, my daughter has never gone through any sickness. The Prophet at that moment said, thank you very much, I'm leaving. Now,
Interesting.
when he left, people were wondering, hold on a minute, the father said that my daughter's not gone through any sickness, no misfortune, nothing's ever gone wrong. And there are some people who ask this question, that if I've had nothing go wrong in my life, what does that say about me? And so the Prophet, peace be upon his family, turns around and he says something very interesting, that sometimes these things are gifts from God. Misfortunes, sicknesses are gifts from God to a people who may have become negligent. Now, I know that's very hard to stomach, especially in this very sensitive time, that you may have some people who say, what do you mean it's a gift from God? Do you see what people are going through?
Yeah.
But there are moments where things like this have made us go down on that prayer mat a bit more than we've done before. You know, now that everyone's off work in some cases and people are working from home and so on, this is a time for you to maybe spend time with your children. That is getting closer to God. This is a time for you to maybe pick up that Quran. That is getting closer to God. This is a time for you to maybe build relations with people who you haven't spoken to for a while because you're so busy. So, Islamically speaking, it can be looked at in two ways. One way is the calamitous aspect. The other way is that these are sometimes gifts to servants who may have become less mindful of their Lord.
And even praying on time. People working from home, when the time of Salah comes, get on that prayer mat. Just pray on time.
Very true.
On the minute. Now with, when we see a lot of people on social media, I see a lot of people on social media, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, they talk about Imam al-Mahdi. Now, could this apply to the return of Imam al-Mahdi? Or
what, this verse? لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ.
Yeah,
لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُم has been mentioned in traditions. That at the time, before the reappearance of the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Farajahu Sharif, you'll find that there is this discussion saying that the ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجَوْعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. They say that this is the verse that talks of the period preceding the return of the Imam. There's going to be fear in the world, there's going to be hunger in the world, there's going to be loss of wealth in the world, there's going to be loss of lives in the world. And give glad tidings to those who are patient in this period. So there are traditions that do mention that verse.
Sayyid, I find this very difficult to stomach. This pandemic that's going on around the world. Is it enough to really close our masajid for Salat Jama'ah, Salat al-Jum'ah? We've missed so many wiladat, shahadat. And the youth, they all want to go to these programs, but they can't because they're being advised by, governing bodies that don't go to places of mass gatherings because, it could risk spreading the disease. Is it really,
It's not easy.
enough?
It's not easy for us for example, not to have been at Sayyida Zainab's wafat last week, alayhi salam. I'm sure there are a lot of the viewers who wish that they had been in the mosque that night. It's not easy for us to have not been, for example, at Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam's wilada. Not easy. This week, Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam.
Shahada, yeah.
You have, for example, Abu Talib this week, Al-Mab'ath al-Nabawi. Many people are sitting there thinking, normally I would be in the mosque and the mosque is closed. But we know very well that Sharia-wise, we are first told to speak to the people of knowledge. The people of knowledge are the medical experts. Our ulama, they are our religious guides. But they say in medicine you go to the medical expert.
صح.
If the medical expert has turned around and said that there is more harm that can come than good, they are the ones who are in the firing line. They are the ones who know all the figures, all the stats, all the conditions. Then in these situations, those things which normally we would be honoring, if we are given guidelines by experts, then we follow those guidelines. If there's a religious issue, for example, I'm going to follow the expert in the religion.
صح.
Correct? And likewise here, I have to recognize what the doctors are saying. Those ulama are even telling me, like Ayatollah al-Sistani, may Allah lengthen his life, ask the medical experts. See what is their advice about the situation in your area. If their advice is saying to you that the situation is one in which there should be a cooling off period because of what's happening, then we have to follow and take from their guidance.
Now, Sayyid, I'm going to give you a scenario here. Let's say I'm ill and I can't go to the mosque. Is my intention recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Of course. We have many traditions that the angels, when somebody was not feeling well, he couldn't go to the mosque. And I know that there are so many who are like, you know what, I want to go to the mosque. Will Allah recognize my intention? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognize our intention. Not just recognize, He orders the angels to go and write for us the good deeds as if we were attending the mosque.
SubhanAllah.
So that person who's sick, let's say there's no coronavirus and that you're just sick that night, you wanted to go to a wilada or you want to go to a shahada. And when you wanted to go to that wilada, you want to go to that shahada, you found yourself in a situation where you couldn't go. We have traditions from Imam al-Rada alayhi salam that Allah orders the angels, go and write for that servant of mine his good deeds as if he has attended the mosque that night.
Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in chapter 26, verse 80, He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. Okay? And when I am ill, it is He who cures me. Okay? But these are places of worship. And there's, some have argued that there's nothing to worry about when I go to these places of worship, these holy places, in terms of catching the virus. What would you say about that?
As I said, firstly, we'll take guidance from the medical experts. Secondly, your immune system may be strong, but there are a lot of the elderly who you may come back and be in contact with.
Okay. Yeah.
We are neglecting the elderly and the state of the elderly in our community. There are people who are saying, I'll go to the mosque. Okay, but when you go back, you may have people in your family above 65 years of age. And those people are going to be in a difficulty. If Mikel Arteta, manager of Arsenal, can be in that situation, if football players of Chelsea and Juventus and others are affected. So firstly, you saying, I'm young and I'll go to the mosque is not going to affect me. Secondly, it's not just about your immunity. There's going to be a situation where you're in contact with those double, if not triple your age. Thirdly, when the Quran in Surah 26, verse number 80, Allah says, through His prophets that, and if I am ill, then He will be the one who cures me. But Allah also says to you that there are certain precautions to be taken.
Plan.
There are traditions which do mention about, and they work both ways, but you'll find some schools in Islam narrate how a leper wanted to come and give a pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, peace be upon his family, and the Prophet said to him that, we accept your pledge of allegiance, but you don't have to come and touch. You know, some would give bay'ah by putting their hand on his hand.
Yeah.
Now that person, because that was a situation which could have affected the community at large. And so for us in this situation, yes, there might be people who say, look, it's up to me, no one's going to stop me. The mosque authorities, they're the ones who have to make the decision on the basis of medical experts. But Allah also asks us to plan. People say, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He's on your side, no one can get to you. Even on the night of Hijrah. What a glorious night that was. Could not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have sent Buraq, picked up the Prophet, taken him from Mecca to Medina and say, there's no one more powerful than me?
Straight.
No, He told the Prophet, I'll look after you. But you make sure there's someone sleeping on your bed. You make sure there's a plan for all of the amanat that have to be returned. You make sure that there's a plan for the fawatim as well. And I'll look after the rest. So the precautions were taken by the Prophet. Imam Ali alayhi salam on the bed. The fawatim were looked after. The amanat were given back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that the Prophet left Mecca to go towards Medina, peace be upon him and his family, protected. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say Allah is the most powerful, Allah will cure. Yes, but Allah also expects from us that there are certain a'mal that are done, and then the tawakkul is on the Lord.
That's food for thought for the viewers out there, for you to really think about it and, you know, plan ahead. Don't just say, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've got him on my side. Yes, but you need to plan ahead. Now, Sayyidina, we've got, you talked about medical experts, and I like how you brought that up. Because we've got some Islamic medical texts, you know, طب Nabawi or طب Islami. We've got narrations from our 8th Imam, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, around 5,000 narrations talking about, you know, golden medical examples. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I know there's a lot of people who focus on Islamic medicine. And you're right, you know, from the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, all of them would certainly speak about different aspects of biology, different aspects of the human body. And as you mentioned, there is a treatise which is attributed to Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, known as the Golden Medical Dissertation or the Golden Medical Treatise. Now, some ulama have questioned whether or what's the need for Imam al-Rida alayhi salam to write a treatise for the caliph of his time. But certainly within the traditions, you'll find that there is a genre of literature which then extends to certain renowned philosophers who are amongst the first to ensure that there are books of medicine which are used by the Muslim world, the likes of Avicenna and others. And this genre of literature, Islamic medicine, or the medicine of the prophets, you find some books, prophetic medicine or the medicine of the prophets, still is sold in our bookshops today. Now, the ulama, as I mentioned earlier, they say that in religion, jurisprudence, theology, we are the guides. In medicine, you go to medical experts, with all due respect. Secondly, you're right, we do have more than 5,000 hadiths which can be classified as medical genre or a literature of Islamic medicine. How many of these hadiths have chains which are complete, which are reliable? You may find that under 5%. There's a good number in Al-Kafi of Shaykh Al-Kulayni. I'm not going to deny this. But some of these were also, maybe one may argue, contextual for that particular time. Medical advancement today is different to the medical advancement of, for example, the 4th century or the 5th century. I'm not going to deny that there may be some traditions which are useful. Nor am I going to deny that there may be amongst these 5,000 narrations, you may have let's say a couple of hundred which are very beneficial medically. But where were they in their medical knowledge then, and where are they? Where are we in our medical knowledge now? Now, certainly we're still far away from how some people seek to play God when it comes to medicine. And if anything was to humble a group of people now, it's this situation where everybody said technology is what dominates the world, and now we've got this technology, nothing can stop us, Corona came, people are baffled, no one's got a vaccine, Bob's your uncle. So we're not denying that Islamic medicine may have a place in the tradition. But if you go to many of the most renowned scholars, even they would say, I wouldn't take many of these traditions. I'd refer you to the medical experts.
But Sayyid, Islamically, we can't deny that. You know, there are guidelines on when we're unwell, this is what we eat. When we're unwell, this is what we don't eat. So what is good for us?
Well, it's very important for us to realize that within our literature, there are certain things which are recommended, which a person, has to make use of. One example, and there are so many others to look at, but one example is honey. Honey is something that can be, that has to be part and parcel of our diet and our growth and our development. The Quran talks of the fact that this is a cure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks of the miracle of the honeybee in the Holy Quran. Now we may just be talking about a teaspoon a day, but this originates from the Quran. Now no one can reject that, because in the Quran and reliable traditions of Ahlul Bayt, we have this discussion on, for example, the consumption of honey. So I'm not going to deny all the traditions within the Islamic medicine genre. The Ahlul Bayt also talk of the fact as to how we eat as being important. The cleanliness of what we're eating, the hygiene of what we're eating. So all of these things are there. We don't want to reject everything, but you'll find on the whole there is always a reference towards the experts in this area.
Very, very intriguing and a very beautiful first half of this live in London about the coronavirus. Our thoughts are with those that are affected by this virus. And please do go on YouTube, go on our Instagram, our Twitter, all our social medias, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and inshallah we'll see you in the second half. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
have a duty towards the preservation and the propagation of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Indeed, one of the best ways to work towards the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajul sharif is through promoting the values of Karbala. Imam Hussein Media Group is the only Shia television network that broadcasts globally in 5 different languages: Arabic, Farsi, Turkish, Urdu, and English. We are appealing to the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam worldwide to support the channel such that it may continue its global operations. Imam Hussein Media Group is seeking 1,000 partners to pledge to a £14 contribution per month. This will allow the channel to sustain its operating costs as we continue to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in multiple languages across the globe. You be a part of this great legacy and donate today. You can pledge in 2 ways. www.imamhussein3.tv/donate will take you direct to our donation page where you can pledge monthly. Or you can call or WhatsApp us on 0044 793 9917163. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Hussein from London. We are very blessed to be in the holy land of Karbala. Please pray for us and pray for everyone who do wish to go.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. I want to pay my respects to Imam Hussein and Maula Abbas from my parents, and I would would like you to recite Salam and Ziyarah for Imam Hussain and Maula Abbas on my behalf.
السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين وأولاد الحسين وأصحاب الحسين وأنصار الحسين لبيك يا حسين لبيك يا غازي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته
وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Live in London with Dr. Sayyid Aman Naqshawani, the biggest talk show, the biggest Shia talk show in the world today. We would like to thank all the viewers for the thousands of questions coming in. Inshallah, we will try and answer as many as we can in the slot that we have assigned. And please do remember, go on our YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Go on our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter, and follow us there and share your thoughts on Imam Hussain TV. Now, Sayyidina, straight into it. The guidelines on cleanliness, generally. The base of faith, one may argue, in Islam, is so intricate with laws of cleanliness from the bathroom, sorry to say, to the kitchen.
النظافة من الإيمان. Cleanliness is part of faith, and it's amazing how now all of us are talking of the importance of it really is, and people are saying, make sure you wash your hands, before you talk to people, meet people, and so on. People are now, scampering for toilet roll, and then others are saying, but is that really cleanliness? I want to wash, my private parts. In the past, there were people who used to make fun of the Muslims, that you're the people who, have these bidets, for example, and look at the exponential rise and growth of the sales of bidets now in the world. So when Muslims were asking for water, a Muslim normally goes to a restaurant, do you have a bottle, do you have a cup, I need to use something. People were like, what's the need? Just get a tissue and clean yourself. If I saw that same piece of feces on my arm, I wouldn't just wipe it off with a tissue. I'd make sure I give it a good scrubbing down with some extra strong Dettol on top. And yet you find that for us, النظافة من الإيمان is in every area. A lady in her monthly cycle, there are certain laws of purity. The male, for example, when it comes to ejaculation, there are laws of purity. When it comes to urinating, there are laws of purity. When it comes to, for example, as we mentioned, you find many traditions about the importance of cleanliness as a part of faith, and the importance of the washing of the hands and so on. So all of these traditions can be found. Sometimes people say, I don't need structured religion. Well, look at the lack of structure now and what it results in. Our lack of understanding of hygiene, the way we cook, the way we clean, has resulted in us now in situations where you don't know who's clean to touch and who's not. And when you come to the laws of the religion of Islam, you find some wonderful discussions about the intricacies of the human body and how it even has an effect on the human soul.
The human soul. Now that's interesting that you mentioned the human soul, because spiritually, okay, before the break, if the viewers have been watching from the beginning, before the break you talked about seeking help from medical experts. Now, is there anything in our literature, something that we can recite to help us through this difficult period?
Well, I think first and foremost, there is the shifa for mankind, the cure for our spiritual ailments, even our physical ailments, and that is the Holy Quran. We stressed at the beginning the importance of seeking the help of your local GP or your medical experts. But alongside that, when the Quran describes itself as a shifa, there is a need for us to open the verses of the Holy Quran. Even looking at the words of the Quran, looking at the verses of the Quran is a cure for the human being. And I'd say in this time, if a person is reading constantly Ayat al-Kursi, constantly Surah al-Fatiha, constantly, for example, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, constantly, for example, in the recital of these chapters of the Holy Quran, Surah Yasin being another prime example, these will be very beneficial. It's a shame that it takes a virus for us to open the Quran. It's a shame that it takes a funeral for us to open the Quran. It's a shame that it takes a wedding for us to open the Quran. But let's take advantage of this. This is one of the, as I said earlier, one of the gifts in misfortune, that you begin to reflect on the spiritual gifts that Allah has given you in your own house, sit right in front of you on a shelf. Make use of them in this period.
Yeah, it's sad to, that they collect dust a lot. Now the Quran, of course, we know that, 100%. How about in the world of supplications and ziyarat?
Well, there's no school like the school of Ahl al-Bayt when it comes to ad'iyah and ziyarat, when it comes to supplications, salutations, and the Shi'i school, it is the school that is the kings of supplication, the masters of supplication, the pure lights that are Muhammad and Al Muhammad salawatullah wa salam alayhim. So there are certain supplications that I would recommend that should be recited. And some of these, our own ulama, our maraja, may Allah lengthen their lives, have all given us guidance on. Definitely recite dua mashlul. That dua that comes to us from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, in their famous story, that dua of the one who may be ill, sick, paralyzed, cannot move. That dua mashlul, all you have to do is go to a website like du'as.org and you look for dua mashlul or Google dua mashlul. Definitely a dua that you should recite. Dua yastashir, highly recommended in this period, especially the Muslim world, the non-Muslim world. Everyone's going through calamities and trials. It's vital that dua yastashir is also recited as well. Sahifa Sajjadiyya of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, there's a particular dua number 7 for those who are going through periods of difficulty and misfortune. I would definitely recommend the recital of dua number 7 of As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya. Likewise, the wonderful supplication or the wonderful salutation that we have, Ziyarat Ashura. And constantly here on this channel and on other channels we're reciting this ziyarah, which has benefited so many throughout history. So these are, aside from the Holy Quran, wonderful gifts that have been left behind for us by the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam.
Ahsant. And Ziyarat Ashura, inshallah, will be recited after this live show. But Sayyid, I'm going to take a question from WhatsApp. Shahji from Ilford says, Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina. How do you ensure du'as work? We could all come together and pray and nothing will happen. Is there Quranic evidence that people coming together makes a difference?
I think that, if you look in the Quran, when the people of Yunus were about to be punished, they all came together, supplicated, and God removed the punishment. The power of dua can mean that even people who are not the most religious, if they turn back towards God, and I say this sincerely for people out there who are Muslim and for people out there who are non-Muslim, turn back towards God in this time. Reflect on the bounties of the Lord. It is fundamental that this is a period for all of us to sit back, reflect all the gifts that we've been given by the Lord, the sustenance, the rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. If we come together in dua in that period, it is definitely something that will help our community. You know, if people have been through plagues, they've been through devastating times in history, and when they all come together in dua, and fundamentally for all of us is that we have to make sure that we pray for others before we pray for ourselves. This is fundamental. There may be some of us here who might be praying that, you know what, Ya Allah, please make sure that I don't get the coronavirus. Please make sure that my mom and dad don't get coronavirus. I don't really care about everyone else. No, one of the signs of dua being accepted is that you first pray for others before you pray for yourself. Pray for the people of China. Don't start bringing religious discussions and theological fights into it. These are human beings. These are people with feelings and emotions. These are elderly and the young. We may not necessarily hear of them being builders of mosques, but we certainly remember that one of the earliest mosques was in China. We have traditions attributed to the Prophet where he talks about the fact that even if you have to go all the way to China to gain knowledge, then so be it. So let's not be in the situation where we don't pray for people except our own people. Pray for the people of Italy. Pray for the people of China. Pray for your own country which you're living in. When we're living in the UK, pray for the country. Pray for the citizens of the country. If we all come together in prayer, it has a great effect.
Ahsant, and I think like myself, many of the viewers, as soon as you said pray for people and then pray for yourself, you remembered Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam when she says to Al-Hasan al-Hussein, Al-Jar thumma al-Dar, the neighbors, then the household. Now we have a question here. Ian from Rochdale says, in Islam, is supplication made from Muslim communities only, or do you mention humanity as a whole? Enjoy your show and keep them coming. A different side to Islam.
Thanks. Well, all I can say to Ian is, as I just said right now, people are of two types. They're your brothers in faith or they're your equals in humanity. My neighbor's a Hindu, my other neighbor is Jewish, and I don't really care what their faith is. If they're going through a difficult time, I'm going to pray for them. My Lord's merciful to all his children.
These are all WhatsApp questions coming directly from you. They are coming in the thousands. Do keep them coming in. Send them to the number down below. It should be in the bottom third of your screen. Sayyid, a question. Alizi from Manchester, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. There is a video saying, if you find a hair in Surah Al-Baqarah, put it in water and it will save you from corona. And I've seen this happen on Twitter, by the way.
Sorry, you've seen what happen?
I've seen it happen. People say, I found a hair in Surah Al-Baqarah, I put it in water, I drank it. Whose hair did I just drink?
I honestly don't know where such things come from. As I said, I prefer for people just to take the advice of the doctors who are experts and to recite the Holy Quran if you want the spiritual supplements or some of the supplications. As for this thing of this hair, put it in this water, and you know if it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, I don't know what the basis for this.
Sayyidina, Fatima from Holland says, my wedding was meant to be next month, and I just feel bad to say this, but feel it's a curse that there's a cancellation. I feel so down, but I trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I need your advice, please.
Fatima, do not be down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, I'm sure, given you much more than He's taken from you. If you have a lovely fiance, then alhamdulillah, you found a good person. And if your parents are with you and you have shelter, you have food on the table, you have education, you have love for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, you're actually in a good place. And if you trust your Lord, with every postponement or cancellation, I'm sure there is wisdom behind it. These are the moments of the tests of the words tawakkul, taslim, rida, all of them we have to apply.
Ahsan. Now Sayyidina, back to our discussion. There are many people out there, as I mentioned in the beginning, that I said that the elderly most of the time are lonely. But there are many people out there who in good times, they're lonely. Now we're in this difficult period. What can we do to help?
I think it's a great question, because in this period where you have a lot of people who are, facing fear and hunger, a lot of them are, a lot are in the lonely community. They don't have sons and daughters who come and visit them. Alhamdulillah, in the Muslim community, we have so many members of our family that our community really becomes our family. But there are people out there who are lonely. There are people out there who have no one to help with, no one to even check if they're doing okay. But I've heard some wonderful stories in the Muslim community, in the Hindu community, and other religious communities where people have begun to recognize that, if there are people out there who cannot reach medicine, they'll take the medicine home. And if there are people who don't have foodstuffs or don't have sanitizers, don't have toilet rolls, people are actually delivering it to them. And I think, again, another gift in the moments of misfortune, humanity coming together and just showing how strong we can be when we're facing a crisis, when we can all cooperate with each other and not put our differences at the forefront.
Now, with cooperation, if the viewers do recall that I mentioned at the beginning, I mentioned 4 things. I mentioned that some have been affected spiritually, physically, economically, and emotionally. Now, economically, Sayyidina, some people are in debt because of this pandemic. That's hit us all, hit the whole world. Should we, seek to help them repay their debts?
I think if we can and we have the means to help someone who's facing a debt at any time, let alone a time when there is the difficulty that we're facing now, we should try and help people in paying their debts. That's what the ummah and collective spirit is about. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam helped Osama bin Zayd pay his debts, even though Osama bin Zayd had not stood up for Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in certain moments that you would have expected Osama to help. And so you find that Imam al-Hussein did not say, well, you didn't help my father. He noticed the man was in debt. He noticed the man was facing difficulty and he helped. In this period, there may be people who suddenly face debt issues, mortgage repayment issues. You hear that some banks are helping. But if you hear that somebody is going through a dilemma, try your hardest to give back from what Allah has given you.
Ahsan, Sayyidina. I believe, as I'm being told in my earpiece, we do have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Edward. I'm phoning from Scotland.
Edward from Scotland. Nice to speak to you, Edward. Can I have your question for the Sayyid, please?
Well, I kind of wanted to mention a statement as well. Moses, alayhi salam, he split the sea and destroyed all the tyranny and evil at the time, suffering at the time, with a normal stick, with a normal piece of wood. So, obviously, when it's spiritually decreed, when we have the spiritual capital, something ordinary can cure us. For example, like all of this calamity which is happening, and it's probably going to get worse as we've seen, like if we watch the media, country after country, now it's a main big thing now, is because of what our hands have sent forth, because of our sins. We've got to pay our karma, we've got to suffer, or we've got to give charity, do good deeds to reverse the damage. And once we do that, once we've suffered enough, or we've done our prayers and good deeds, then we don't need to maybe worry about a miracle cure, but something ordinary will cure us. Well, I've got rough notes here I've made. So, for example, it's about balancing the books, really, because, the books are unbalanced, and, we have to pay for our misdeeds, what our hands have set forth. And so, if we do wrong, we have to suffer. If we've wronged someone, we have to suffer, or we have to atone for our sins. And obviously, the books aren't balanced, so we need to suffer in terms of this virus. And it's kind of like Noah's Ark in a way. There was a big flood, and people drowned to death. And this virus, for example, people which catch it, they can't breathe if the infection gets so bad. So it's a kind of like a drowning. And like the Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salam, are, as we've been told, are the Ark of Noah's, in comparison to Noah's Ark of our time,
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention other things. For example, once you've balanced the books, you've paid your charity. Sorry.
Brother Edward, because we're short of time, can we just have your question to the Sayyid, please?
Okay. In the hadith, the end times, it mentioned that, there'll be a white death and red death, the white death being a plague near the end times. And I'm sure they've written, the remedy for it, and also that I mentioned that the are the Ark of salvation. So could he elaborate more on that? And also I wanted to mention that people need to start spending their money in charity and to not buy corporate goods, because we're basically paid for our own suffering, because we've bought these iPhones, which £100 goes towards the evil forces, and etc. etc. We've paid for our own suffering. So all I wanted to mention is that must-have things and doing good things can reverse the damage. We should just look about survival. We can reverse the damage in terms of doing must-have and balancing our books on individual basis, and then collectively that'll reverse the damage.
Ahsan.
So just the arc of salvation I want to know about, and the white death elaboration and the cure.
Thank you very much, Brother Edward. Thank you for your question. Sayyidina.
Thank you very much. In terms of deaths occurring, sicknesses occurring, illnesses occurring, you can see this trend certainly in the signs of the reappearance of the Imam. And I mentioned the word trends because there are major question marks always about reliability of the traditions of the reappearance of the 12th Imam.
Yeah.
The great scholar living in Najaf, Sheikh Sanad, may Allah lengthen his life, has a book called Fiqh Alamat al-Dhuhur, the deeper understanding of the signs of the reappearance. And he discusses the fact that you've got trends which a person should be focused on, which emerge from this literature. If a person's going to be just picking line by line, there are traditions which are not that reliable. But if you're looking for trends, one of the trends that was rightly mentioned is that there is this لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجَوْعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ, that there will be this pandemic which attacks humanity. Now we've seen, one may argue if this tradition was from 1,000 years ago, we've seen the Black Plague, we've seen the Spanish influenza, we've even seen within Muslim majority countries this occurring. So again, a person looks at this trend, and this is certainly a trend that can be repeated again. And as for the Ark of Salvation, the Ark of Salvation, as we know, are the Prophet and his family, peace be upon them. Nobody is able to gain the spiritual equilibrium that Edward is referring to unless you go through Muhammad and Al Muhammad.
Ahsan, Sayyidina. I believe we do have another caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Can I have your name and where you're calling from?
So my name is Ghulam Mehdi and I'm calling from London.
Ghulam Mehdi and calling from London. Brother Ghulam, your question for the Sayyid, please.
Yes, my question really is being a medical professional at the current time, what's the Islamic perspective really, or our perspective, in terms of ourselves as medical professionals needing to make more difficult decisions in dictating healthcare to more at-risk groups, and potentially therefore having to deny elder members of the community access to life-saving interventions?
Thank you very much, Brother Ghulam. And before the Sayyid gives us his beautiful answer, I'd like to thank Brother Ghulam and the likes of him for his service as a medical professional, being on the front line, risking their lives to help people with this virus. Sayyidina.
Yeah, I have to echo your words. I think the medical professionals out there, my sister being one of them, they are in a situation where I think they deserve a lot more praise. When a country has its army represent them, everyone praises those in the military, but people seem to forget those in the medical world who have to be there in emergency situations and put their life at risk as well with what's happening. Indeed, you find that we do face a situation now where people are saying, well, if somebody is elderly, you know what, you should just think about those who've got more years ahead of them, forget the ones who are a bit elder, we don't have enough hospital beds. The National Health Service is facing some difficulties, where, how do you contain so many people who may be affected at such a short time? And these things definitely are affecting our doctors. And there may be certain situations where, ethical withdrawal from having to make certain decisions can be applied. The ethics of withdrawal is part of certain hospital procedures where some doctors are able to say, well, I don't necessarily want to take part in that procedure for religious reasons. I prefer to withdraw from that. So in consultation with their hospitals, that is something that may have to be used. We hope it doesn't get to that stage. And that the hospitals are able to find a way in which the elderly and those who are much younger are to be cared for. But if it puts you in a situation where you feel that you're literally being told that, look, who cares about this life? Just get rid of it. Don't give them enough help. Then at that moment, your ethics of withdrawal from a particular procedure or particular decision may have to be applied. That doesn't mean that there aren't exceptions to certain rules when it comes to the way even, for example, the dead body is to be treated. Ayatollah Sistani has spoken at length about certain situations. I'm sure we've got questions on this. You told me have been sent in, which we'll come to shortly, where there are exceptions to normal rules in relation to certain medical situations.
Ahsant. And like you said, in the break, I did mention to the Sayyid that there were so many questions coming in through WhatsApp. We have a question here by Brother Qambar from Melbourne. He says, Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina, I own a supermarket and can't but help feel enticed to buy products which I know people need and sell at a higher price. Classic.
Yeah.
Have the Prophet or Imams discussed this in fiqh?
Hoarding.
Straight.
Yeah. We have a hadith, I remember, in Man la yahdarahu al-faqih of Shaykh al-Saduq, that no one hoards food items except the sinner. And what happens sometimes in these situations is you'll go to the supermarket, you'll buy the sanitizers, knowing everyone needs them. You go and then you sell them at this ridiculous price. I saw a video where people were taking basmati rice. Honestly, they had a trolley with basmati rice in there. And, and then they even had a baby's pram. They were shopping with a baby's pram and the trolley.
No.
And you'd think that, okay, you give them benefit of the doubt, they might have 40 people in their house. No, it was to take it to his supermarket so that he could sell it for a more expensive price. This is a period of empathy, cooperation. There are households that do not have such things. There are elderly who don't have the strength to go out and shop. So in Man la yahdar al-faqih and in other traditions, no one hoards food items except the sinner.
Another question from WhatsApp. Sister Ala from Canada says, Sayyidina, for Salat al-Jama'ah, doctors are saying keep a distance between each other. What do we do?
I think if you look at Ayatollah Sistani's guidelines, he talks of the fact that if there's a 1 meter distance between you, then that's okay. When it gets to 2 meters or more, then it becomes problematic. Yeah.
Well, there's so many. There's actually so many. Kadham from Nairobi says, Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina, if one knows they're infected but doesn't tell anyone, in Islamic law, are they liable?
They are liable. If you know that you're infected, well, if you know you're infected, if you've got a problem with the coronavirus, then you're not meant to be coming to the mosque. You know, there's a period of isolation that takes place. Quarantine, there is guidance to be given by the medical experts. And if you do, and you know you're infecting people, you're liable for blood money even when someone dies.
Oh, really?
Yep. And all other costs as well.
That's very intriguing. Okay. Kauthar from London says, Ghusl seems out of question for a dead body. Can tayammum be done with gloves on? What if the doctor says both are a risk?
Well, ghusl would be the priority. If it can't be done, it would be tayammum. And if tayammum cannot be done, then there is nothing to be done to that body. It becomes a circumstance which is exceptional, and therefore there is nothing to be done to that body. Nothing can be done, yeah.
Oh. Well, so in history, we've seen plagues occurring, throughout human history. What were some of the ulama's reactions back in the day to those kinds of situations?
Well, we've had great numbers of deaths occur. For example, if you look in Tehran 1846, you had like 12,000 people die. So in that period, the Qajar dynasty, even before that in the Safavid dynasty, you had, certain times where plagues had overtaken. 1846, 12,000, 1851, I think 15,000 people died. And you also had interesting cases where there was isolation. People were isolated who were affected. You also had some people who even went up to the mountains because they thought high altitude would protect them. And there were even cases where they were telling people, don't bring dead bodies for janazah to Qum from places like Tabriz, because they were saying that, listen, you're going to cause the plague to continue here. I mentioned that, look, if someone dies and they're affected by corona, then that person, you can't do ghusl to them, you can't do tayammum to them, you don't do anything to them. Even cases of cold storage for a certain period of time, which have to be done, place them in the coffin straight in the ground. People are taking extra precautionary measures. Now, Sheikh, the renowned scholar Ni'matullah al-Jazairi, he had a book on this area, مسكن الشجون في حكم الفرار من الطاعون. And that book is a book where he tried to give his own conclusions on why, for example, a particular plague affected Basra or why it affected Syria, for example. And his conclusions, whether we agree with them or we don't, مسكن الشجون في حكم الفرار من الطاعون is still a work that, is present in the sense of the opinions don't all have to be necessarily agreed with, but it was certainly a work that looked at what could be the underlying causes of these viruses or these plagues affecting the community. So he said Syria, well, they got people from Bani Umayyah. Basra, they still have haters of Imam Ali who fought, the opposition at the Battle of Jamal. So you have these types of, scholars who may have written such works trying to explain why these plagues occur in different parts of the Muslim community.
And again, like we said when the second caller called in, special mention again to our doctors. They've been immense with being in the front lines, tackling, putting themselves at risk. But saying that, could this outbreak be an actual sign of Imam al-Mahdi's reappearance?
I think, like we said to Brother Edward, that the trend is a trend that talks of a great number of deaths, but great numbers of deaths have happened before. We can take it as a trend, and I don't know how much more.
And you've, I remember in some of your lectures, you've mentioned in your series on Imam al-Mahdi, you mentioned that in the past, hundreds of events have happened. And people in that time said, this is the time of the reappearance of the Mahdi, this is the time, and then it dies down, and then something comes again. There's so many in history where things have happened, but Imam al-Mahdi hasn't reappeared.
Well, don't worry about, when God decides to allow the Imam to return, or when he decides to allow Prophet Isa to come from occultation. You don't worry about that. Work on building your relationship with your Imam in this moment. There are nations in history, they needed a Messiah. That Messiah, when in their most difficult moment they prayed for him, the Messiah appeared for them. All of us now, Dua Ahad, Dua Ghariq, look at, Allahumma kun li waliyika, Dua Tawas, all of these, start reading them more, reflecting on the Imam of your time, build your relationship with the Imam. Don't worry about those who, for example, are telling you he's going to come next year, 2021, 22, 23, June, July. Build your relationship with this period. This is a great time for reflection and a great time to contemplate on our relationship with the Imam.
All right. Now, Sayyidina, WhatsApp questions that just keep coming in. Assalamu alaikum. I want to know from Sayyid Ammar what could be recited by a son for his late father besides normal du'as that we make after our salah 5 times a day. Something which is best and recommended by the Imams. Would appreciate if you can also mention some acts which can be carried by the children for their father. Thanks, Hassan.
I'd always say that, try your hardest to recite Quran in honor of your father. And also try and ensure that you sponsor majalis in your father's name. If you can do a umrah for him, that's beneficial as well.
Ahsan. Assalamu alaikum. I want to ask, should we forbid now all kinds of gatherings, prayer in mosques? If not, why?
Ayatollah Sistani himself has said, you ask the local leaders of your mosque and they consult with the experts, then you reach a conclusion. So everyone is at their discretion what the situation is.
This next question from Tanis Fatima in India. She says, Assalamu alaikum. There's a video which has been doing rounds on social media.
Yeah.
Wherein the mu'adhin is reciting adhan. Instead of saying Hayya ala salah, he's saying As-salatu fi buyutikum. Pray in your homes. In the view of ongoing crisis, many people also claim that this was done once during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. My question to Sayyidina is that how true are these claims, and is it really acceptable to change a part of adhan on account of prevailing circumstances? What is your take on it?
Yes, I've heard about this, that, in the adhan it said, So you've had Hayya ala salah, you've had as-salah khayrun min an-nawm, and you've also had as-salat fi buyutikum. That is not the opinion of our school, but in other schools in Islam, they have. For example, some have argued a fatwa from Ibn Abbas on this issue, that this is allowed, exceptional circumstance. If that is their conclusion, on the basis of the narrations that they deem as reliable, that's their conclusion. Otherwise, not necessarily applicable to our school. Our school will say that, look, Salat al-Jama'ah, if it cannot be held, it's an exceptional case right now because of a particular virus. We respect the circumstance. We can stay at home.
This question saying, Salaam alaikum, question for Sayyid Ammar, please. Is this coronavirus a potential sign of the Day of Judgment nearing us?
I think we'd be more worried about a sign of Imam al-Mahdi before we get to the Day of Judgment. Let the Imam return and then we'll focus on the Day of Judgment.
This one says, how can we support mosques in the community? Currently up north we have an issue of some centers not taking this seriously.
Well, you know, all of these things work with consultation. I would always recommend the centers to refer back to their marja, see what his guidelines are about how important and how sensitive this area is. But also, there are always 2-3 doctors in the community. Sit with them, sit with the local board of, of the ulama who consult doctors and see what their conclusions are. Again, it's not obligatory for you to go to programs. So if your mosque decides to continue to hold them, they continue to hold them. It's not obligatory for you to attend, but the mosques have to be wary that those people who do attend may be affected, and then when they're infected, they have to go to visit the elderly and it can hurt them.
I have to read this one because I'm in it. Salam, just want to let you know that Brother Minhal is a good host. His way of interacting with Sayyid Ammar and is very nice, relaxed with his question. Has a nice lineup of questions as well. Question: what's one short dua ziyarat one can recite daily during these times to increase closeness to Allah and develop trust in Him to calm your nerves?
Well, I think the Quranic verses such as قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ or such as Ayat al-Kursi, you cannot get better cures for the soul of the human being and hopefully to help us in our bodily development as well.
This one is actually really, really, really relevant to this. It's from someone who's anonymous. If there is a woman, Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina, if there is a woman who recently found out that she is expecting, but due to the pandemic fears for the life of that child, in such a case, does Ayatollah Sistani allow pregnancy termination?
If you have evidence that the mother's life is in danger, and that would require the doctor's conclusion, that would be a case in which abortion would be allowed. But for a person to just say, well, because there's a virus, that means I should be able to abort, no, you can't conclude in that way.
This one says, Assalamu alaikum, my 3-year-old daughter has celiac disease. I want to stock up on her gluten-free products as they are running out fast. Islamically, is it permissible to stock up on foods as a dietary requirement?
Well, you could stock up. There's no doubt about stocking up. But if you're going to do it in a way where you're going to ensure nobody else in the community has any access, and then you're going to go on to sell it, that's where it becomes problematic. Otherwise, the person stocking up for their family member is something which is acceptable. There's no issue. But in this period, it's a period of cooperation, and it's a period in which we should all seek to work together.
And just to remind the viewers that there is a live in London tomorrow with Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani as well, discussing what you're going to be discussing tomorrow, inshallah.
You will certainly find out very shortly.
You will find out very shortly. Do stay tuned on our social medias and on our YouTube channel. But from Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani and from myself, we've been discussing the coronavirus. Thank you very much for tuning in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
have a duty towards the preservation and the propagation of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Indeed, one of the best ways to work towards the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif is through promoting the values of Karbala. Imam Hussein Media Group is the only Shia television network that broadcasts globally in 5 different languages: Arabic, Farsi, Turkish, Urdu, and English. We are appealing to the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam worldwide to support the channel such that it may continue its global operations. Imam Hussein Media Group is seeking 1,000 partners to pledge to a £14 contribution per month. This will allow the channel to sustain its operating costs as we continue to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in multiple languages across the globe. You be a part of this great legacy and donate today. You can pledge in 2 ways. www.imamhussein3.tv/donate will take you direct to our donation page where you can pledge monthly. Or you can call or WhatsApp us on 0044 793 9917163. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.
Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation is a charity set up to help the underprivileged in the holy city of Karbala. We have projects to help orphans, widows, newly married couples, and not forgetting the pilgrims of Imam Hussein. So do something amazing. Be part of the legacy. Come join and support one of our projects. Join us. Donate now. www.ihdrf.org.
Time is ticking.
Caught for raping English girls. Remember? You're here defending the paedophile. I'm here defending your dad. These women are here defending the paedophile. You're here defending.
We don't need a TV channel because we've got mosques.
We have Islamic centers that are always open.
We have schools teaching Islam.
Hijab is part of a school uniform.
Islam has come and it's established here in the West.
And everyone's happy. They love us, our food, our fashion,
our culture.
The media is always on our side.
We've got plenty of English speakers, plenty of English books,
and plenty of places to go and learn in the English language.
Let's be real.
Let's get active. Be more involved. www.imamhussein3.tv.
Imam Hussein Media Group is a virtual university that works on a global scale to spread the true message of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt's peace and blessings be upon them. Imam Hussein TV was established 10 years ago in the city of Isfahan, Iran. We work to cover all aspects of religion, Islamic jurisprudence, politics, philosophy, and many more, and aim to bring the public's attention to the righteous Islamic sect, Shia Islam. Our ultimate goal as a media group is to convey the interpretations of the Holy Quran, as well as the traditions and knowledge of the Holy Prophet and his progeny. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon them. Our objectives are to protect and safeguard the Shia youth from the destructive impact of immoral ideologies, standing up against injustice by documenting the oppression of Shia across the globe, as well as encouraging peace and unity amongst the Muslims. To reach our aims and serve the Muslim Ummah, we require a budget that would cover all the expenses for our productions, allowing us to work on different projects. Imam Hussein Media Group is a crowd-funded project. We have no sales nor do we charge for our services. We solely rely on monthly payments, financial contributions, donations, religious alms, and generous gifts. The expenses of each production varies depending on the type of project and the style of filming. There are many elements to a production that requires time and capital. The producer must analyze the costs of the venue hire, equipment, transport, feature fees, set design, staff support, and further additional costs. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, narrated, "The best of people is he from whom people benefit." It is up to you to help the Muslim Ummah come together and help guide the youth in remaining on the correct path of Islam. To take part in this global conquest and to spread the message of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, please visit www.imamhussein3.tv or give us a call on +44 0203 515 0199. You can also contact us via WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, or even email us on donate@imamhussein.tv. Let's work together hand in hand to elevate the faith of our Shia youth today.